Ladies and gentlemen, my name is TotalBiscuit. I'm here to ask and answer one simple question. WTF is the Swindle? It is a steampunk cybercrime caper, according to the game. That's reasonably accurate, I suppose. It's brought to you by Size 5 Games, the folks behind Time Gentlemen Please, Been There, Dan That, and Gun Monkeys. This is a single-player stealth heist platformer thingy, for the most part. Let's have a quick look at the options menu and then we'll dive right in. This is what it looks like. This resolution is completely wrong, so I certainly hope that it doesn't switch it on me, because that would be terrible. Bloom, full screen on or off available. Turned camera dirt off because it was recommended by the developers. They thought that some of the control issues this game has might be related to that. I personally don't believe that's the case. We got background blur, saturation, sun shafts, particle effects, and VSync on or off. For a 2D game, not too shabby. You do have separate sliders here. There is no speech, so global volume and music volume are, I would say, for the most part, fine. It's a little bit annoying that you have to manipulate the global volume in order to manipulate the sound effects and then change the music volume accordingly. It's nice to have separate sliders for that, but whatever, it's a minor problem. Show tutorials. I wish it showed more tutorials, I gotta say, but there you go. And then the keyboard controls, which can be rebound. This is incidentally the only place which I actually found the attack button, which the tutorial never mentions. Both myself and Dodger actually went through several levels without realizing you could actually hit things. So there you go. Gamepad controls available here as well, and rebindable, which is fairly rare. It's nice to see that. I'm using a controller for this. You can use keyboard if you like. We'll talk about the control issues in a moment, but what I would say is that there's really no effective difference between the two, so whichever you're most comfortable with. Okay, let's dive into the game, shall we? So, in The Swindle, you are tasked with stealing as much as possible in order to raise enough money to stop, I believe it's called the Devil's Basilisk, which is this all-encompassing supercomputer which will make crime impossible in London. You have 100 days before it's brought online, and during this time you have to raise money, raise your skills, and eventually attempt to steal said computer and allow yourself to continue your life of crime. It's as simple as that. Every heist you do is a day, and those days will gradually tick down. Now, if I recall correctly, it is possible to extend your timer a little bit if you spend a lot of money, but I have nowhere near the money required. So, if we go to the workbench, you'll notice a bunch of skills. Now, these will apply to whichever burglar you are using, and these burglars have randomly generated names. I'm playing James A. Undercarriage. Gentleman thief, of course. You can level your thieves up, but when they die, they lose their levels. But they don't lose these abilities, which are all persistent. So you've got agility stuff. It's like, hey, if I want to double jump multiple times, I could unlock that. For instance, it's going to cost me £40,000 to do that. A little bit pricey. Increase your movement speed, wall jumping, stealth, falling, as in don't die by falling. It would be nice if that would default, and so on and so forth. And you can see a bunch of skills, like your ability to hack, tools which you can get, such as bombs, the steam purge, which allows you to hide, as well as bugs you can plant to earn money, remote detonation, EMP, goggles, and all that sort of thing. And you can also unlock various levels of difficulty. And the harder levels, needless to say, earn you more money, but are significantly more difficult to deal with. Now, most of the money you earn in this game will be earned through hacking, although it is possible to pick some up. So let's jump into a level and show you exactly how that works. I have 3 areas unlocked. The slums is the default area. It's very easy. Well, relatively easy. The warehouse district is the next level up, and I also have New Belgravia, which I'm finding nigh on impossible. And that is only halfway through. So let's dive into the warehouse district and show you the gameplay. There are 35 days left. Yeah. Now, you'll notice up to the top, I have some information as to how much money is available here, and that's something you have to unlock. You don't get that by default. I'm going to hack my way through this door right here. At least I'm going to try and do that. Let's not screw it up by letting go a little bit early. Now, if I get detected, the police will come. And they generally murder you, so you want to get the hell out of there as quickly as possible. You also lose your ghost bonus if you are detected. So I don't want any of that, preferably. There we go. Now, the way that the system works is relatively simple, as you can see. If you run into a camera, then they're going to see you, and that would be terrible. So let's not have that happen. I'm also going to try and place a bug here. I'm not sure if I can do that quickly enough. If I do it now, I should be fine. Now, this bug is going to consistently earn me money, as you can see down at the bottom there. There we go. And that's going to tick into my bank, which is always nice. And that'll happen until they are randomly discovered. Alright, this... Don't even get me started with this bit. Good lord, don't want to get anywhere near any of that, if at all possible. So I'm going to jump up the wall and avoid that. So you're attempting to steal as much money as possible. But there is, of course, the risk that you will be detected and killed. You die in one hit from pretty much everything. So, as a result, there is quite a lot of risk-reward involved. How long are you willing to stay in an area? How much money are you willing to risk your life for? And you might be wondering, well, that's not too bad, right, if you die, because you just get a new thief. Yes, but you lose all the money that is on your person when you die. So that is not exactly advantageous. And more importantly, something the game doesn't really mention, but you'll rapidly figure out. If you lose your thief, then you lose the experience bonus that thief gains. And that experience bonus is a very large multiplier, which will result in a lot of extra dosh. Alright. Seems like we can make our way through here if we place some bombs, so I'm going to do that. In fact, we might even be able to use this mine to our advantage here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to disarm the mine. There we go. And I'm going to place a bomb next to the mine, which will hopefully also cause the mine to detonate and maybe blow my way through there, and hopefully I can access that area. You might be noticing the level design is a little bit unusual. Yeah, and there's a reason for that. The level design is randomly generated. Now, therein lies my first issue with the game. You know, you're thinking, oh, procedurally generated levels, that's great. You know, I'll never see the same level twice. Well, you will. I mean, you will see levels that look very, very similar to levels you've previously been on. I mean, there's only so many combinations that make sense. But you will also, interestingly enough, see levels that don't really make a great deal of sense. And I think I might have actually wasted my bombs there. I'm not sure. There may be another way through, but I'll go and have a look. There are plenty of corridors which lead absolutely nowhere. There are plenty of rooms that are full of guards and yet have absolutely nothing to guard whatsoever. There's all sorts of stuff like that that you'll find in the game. And it becomes somewhat frustrating. I mean, until you end up unlocking the goggles which will tell you how much money's left and where the hack stations are, you will end up wasting a huge amount of time. I'm going to have to go through that room. That's going to be a nightmare and a half, but we'll give it a shot. There's so much of that, and I think it, interestingly enough, demonstrates one of the biggest problems that procedurally generated games often have, that the levels are just not anywhere near as high quality as they would be if they were hand-designed. But the way that this game is set up means that they really couldn't do the hand design thing, because every heist is one day. They're expecting you to do like 100 heists, maybe even more than that. That was a little bit weird. My attack button didn't register there. Let's try that again. So I'm not really sure what's going on with that. Anyway, hand designing over 100 levels, and I assume you'd have to hand design over 100, would of course be a bloody nightmare. So you can understand why they didn't do it, but it does put them in that annoying situation where their levels are maybe not as well designed and don't come out anywhere near as well as they would if they happened to be made by hand. It also introduces a very interesting problem, especially early on in the game. Now, I showed you earlier the way that the skill system works. You unlock skills using money. Simple enough, right? Nothing too complicated about that. Thing is, one of the key things that you have to do in the game in order to earn cash is to hack. Yeah, as I demonstrated just there, I hacked the computer, took the money, and then run. And speaking of run, I think I'm actually going to leave now, because I'm pretty sure I have hacked all the computers. There's 384 pounds lying around the floor that I can't be bothered to get, and I would rather live, so I'm going to leave right now and not die. Anyway, you need to hack. The thing is, hacking is a skill that costs £100. Now, it's not a lot of money. You can get it fairly quickly. And indeed, the way the game is designed, you should be able to get it in the first level. But the thing is, the first level shows you computers that you cannot hack. And it's also possible that the way that that level is generated, it won't actually have enough money in it to afford hacking. Which is kind of ridiculous. You'd think that they would ensure that there was at least £100 in that room. But sometimes it generates the level in such a way that you can't access it. For instance, you can get a room that you would have to blow up the wall with a bomb in order to access. The problem is that you don't have bombs by default, and it costs far too much. So you can actually end up having a really screwed up run to start with. Like, I restarted several runs simply because on the first level I didn't get enough money to hack. And by the next level, where things got a little bit more difficult and I really need to get some cash, I couldn't because I couldn't hack any of the computers. Now, I think an easy solution to that would be to start you with a bloody hacking skill. That seems fairly simple. Picking money up off the floor is really just a completionist thing for the most part. The money on the floor is worth absolutely nothing relative to the amount that you get from hacking a computer. So I think that is a pretty easy solution. So it would be kind of nice if they sorted that out, I think. That would be good. Alright, I'm going to jump on back into the warehouse district to do a little bit more. I've increased my hacking skill now, so that should be nice. So I can do it a little bit quicker. Not by much, but a little bit. Now, what other issues do I have with it? There's one issue that is a huge bugbear for me, and this has been reported by multiple people on the Steam forums and through Steam reviews, and yet for some reason, I couldn't find any reference to it in more traditional reviews on websites or anything along those lines. Like, no one seemed to mention it, which made me a bit concerned because I thought maybe it was just me having this issue. Usually I don't look at other people's reviews before I do my critique. I'd rather not have my opinions colored by other people's. But in this case, when I first started playing the game, I thought the controls for this are really, really sloppy. Is it just me? Am I doing something wrong here? So I checked, and I was not the only person to have this issue. So the controls are very, very loose. And there's a number of examples as to why that is. Like, for instance, it's very, very easy to accidentally jump onto a wall even though you weren't aiming to do that. I noticed the arc of the jump right there, like how high the jump goes. The jump actually doesn't go as high as that wall, and yet as I jump up here, it actually grabs onto the wall for me. This is particularly problematic before you unlock double jump, because there are areas you must wall jump to in order to access, and yet it looks like you can't actually get up there. But you can. It's like the character's model suddenly teleports slightly upwards in order to grab onto the wall. It's not smooth at all. And indeed, wall jumping every now and again does cause a few problems. Like, I've had a guy lose control and slip off a wall into spikes even though I've been holding down the button. This sort of thing can happen. And it's hard to know when your control system is that inaccurate as to whose fault it is. And I think that when you're doing a game that requires a fairly large degree of precision, you would want precise controls in order to make sure that nobody would run into those sort of problems. And yet, here we see a game that does not have particularly precise controls at all. You know, in Meat Boy, or something along those lines, I think it's fair to hold Meat Boy up as a stellar example of precision controls. I know exactly when I've screwed up, because I know the controls are basically pixel perfect. In this game, I've had numerous deaths where I've not been entirely sure whether or not it was actually my fault. Did I screw up, or was it the controls just being loose and more of a suggestion as opposed to an accurate move? Hard to say, honestly. Hard to say. They could definitely tighten this up a great deal. It's actually one of my biggest problems with the game, because frustrating deaths in this game are aplenty. I mean, you die instantly from touching an enemy. You die instantly from, say, a bullet coming your way. You die instantly from the numerous traps, like mines and spikes. It's really easy to die to a mine. Now, if you accidentally, say, let go of the Y button while you're hacking a mine, the mine instantly explodes. If you press the wrong button while hacking a mine, it instantly explodes, and so on and so forth. It's easy to screw up, actually. Surprisingly so. And that's fine, for the most part, but when I suspect that it's actually the game's fault rather than my fault, that's when I start to have a few issues with it. So yes, I think that a game like this, with so many instant death scenarios and so much tension, absolutely requires better controls. That needs tightening up in a big way. Alright, there's 280 pounds left in here. I could at least grab that bag, certainly. Now, I'm talking a little bit about grabbing the bags and I'm assessing risk and reward and things like that. Now that is one of the key strengths of the game. Yeah, I've ragged on it a little bit for numerous reasons. Now, design issues, the way that the procedural generation works, the controls that are more suggestions than actual actions. Yeah, those are valid criticisms, but that doesn't mean the game is worthless. In fact, far from it. I mean, not only does it have a great concept, but it's one of those games that really does risk-reward better than most. This is a game about being really, really greedy. And it's also a game that will punish you if you're greedy and yet your skills are not up to snuff to keep up with your level of greed. You want to steal as much as possible. I mean, right now, everything's going pretty well. You know, I haven't been detected. There's no panic going on. Everything seems like it's going just fine. Nothing to worry about, right? But it only takes one slip-up for everything to go to pot, whether it be a detection or worse still, a death, at which point I would lose all of the money that I've stolen. It's entirely possible. I want to clean this place out right now and try and get my ghost bonus. Just get a little bit extra cash. Why not? Well, the answer is, this last piece of cash could be in a very dangerous place. I could slip on this wall and fall to my death. That's entirely possible. It's especially true since I found that double jumping doesn't seem to reset the fall height, which means you can actually die even though you thought you were entirely safe. Don't want to go through this way. I could screw up on this mine, for instance. I could walk forward just a little bit too far and not hit the hack button in time. I could hit the wrong button while I'm hacking it and instantly my entire caper explodes in my face. That can happen. There's an example of a useless room down there, by the way. There's literally nothing in it. There's no point in that room even existing. Anyway, that is really interesting. And it causes heightened tension. It makes the game very tense. It makes the game very exciting. That level of greed that you are going to be led into holding, I think. You know, the game really encourages you to be as greedy as possible, offering you rewards for doing so. It's like, yeah, just grab that extra one. You know, there's one, it's right there. You know, it's just behind this mine. You know how to defuse a mine, right? It's easy. Or what if I had accidentally hit the wrong button there? That's entirely possible. I don't know where the rest of the cash is, so I think I'm actually just going to leave now rather than lose all of this money. And also, of course, lose the experience that my thief has accrued. But it's a great little system. And I think you'll find yourself cursing your own greed as opposed to the game more often than not. Because you could have very easily got out of there. So, you know, £9,500 would be fine, but you had to go for 9,900, didn't you? And then you fell down a spike pit or slipped on a wall or something along those lines. That's very, very compelling gameplay in my opinion. And gameplay-wise, you know, there's some really cool tricks. It not only requires precision and timing, but there are also resource management elements going on. It's like, when do you use your bombs? Where do you use your bombs? Do you use a bomb here to more easily bypass some obstacles, or do you take the riskier road and conserve your resources for an area later that might be inaccessible? You don't know, because that's the advantage of the procedural generation system. You just don't know where everything is going to be. So you do have to take some risks from time to time. And I think that is greatly beneficial to the title. Works very, very well. How much is that EMP? Ooh, alright. Let's get that EMP. That sounds useful. And let's go and try out one of the harder levels. I expect I will get absolutely obliterated here. Other noteworthy elements. You gotta love the visuals. At least, I gotta love the visuals. I think the visuals are absolutely wonderful for the most part. Really, really nice. Great steampunk aesthetic. Really nice graphic style. I love the pastel shaded backdrops and everything like that. Reminds me a little bit of Don't Starve's aesthetic to some degree. It's pretty. And I also like the soundtrack as well, which I think is perfect for a heist-based caper game, especially one based in London. You hear Big Ben in the back. You see, I thought I could hack that from there, and dead! There we go, all that experience is gone. Goodbye, Jason Undercarriage. And hello, Nick Blackstock de Seal, who will be attempting this level this time and hopefully not messing it up. I guess we're about to find out. That's actually a really, really tricky thing to bypass. There we go. Okay, managed to get the jump. I thought we were going to screw the jump up. Do I wish to hack this? I probably do. That is a trap that will activate if I'm detected. So just gonna kill that. There we go. And we could also use it against our opponents. Sounds like a good idea. Yoink. There we go. Lovely. Alright, so far so good. Except we're dealing with horrible gun robots and... oh god, I hope this electrocution works. Oh, God, the mine! No. Oh, well, never mind. Anyway, great music, great aesthetic as far as I'm concerned. Spot on, really. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I do have a particular fondness for steampunk-themed stuff. So I have a degree of bias in that regard. You know, some people are not necessarily going to enjoy that aesthetic. I kind of love it. Got to admit. There we go. And it's also a weird juxtaposition of themes. Like, hey, it's a cybercrime thriller set in Victorian steampunk London. Because, of course it is. I mean, why wouldn't it be? That was a mistake! Time to leave. Well, at least we got some cash from it, right? And I'm leaving. Goodbye. I wonder if you've got to do that one last. Well, I got 9,000 from it. Not too bad for walking in a couple of doors, right? Although I am rapidly running out of time. So the game does have plenty of redeeming aspects to it. You know, it is compelling, and it's fun going into each house to see what crazy nonsense the procedural generation system has come up with next to challenge you. And I do use the term nonsense in many ways, because sometimes, in fact, many times, the levels are completely illogical in terms of their design. You know, they were obviously designed by an algorithm, they were not designed by a person. And I've explained why I think that's a weakness, but also kind of necessary in the way that the game is designed. There we go, yoink, and out of there. It's not bad. I really think they've got to tighten those controls up, I really do. And they've got to rethink the early game as well. There are definitely some issues with that. Can I jump up there? There we go. Oh, bloody hell. There we go. There are some issues with that, absolutely. You really should start with hack. The first couple of levels should perhaps be pre-designed to ensure that you are properly taught the various techniques in the game. I mean, telling you how to hit something would be a good idea. They don't even tell you that. It's not mentioned. The only time that I actually figured that one out is by going to the key binding menu, thinking, well, there's got to be a way, surely, to deal with these robots. So it's like, well, there is, yes, but we're not going to tell you that. Alright, that's the range of the EMP. Okay, good to know. Would have been nice if I'd fried the camera as well, but it is what it is. Oh, this is going to be messy, messy, messy. Not impossible, though. There we go. Take that out. That's what we like. Put it down here, just out of the way of the camera. I mean, when you execute these particular maneuvers correctly, it is extremely satisfying. Now, those of you who are into stealth games, there's a lot to like here, certainly, but as I said before, I do think that lack of precision in the controls is going to be an element of frustration for a lot of people. Oh, bollocks. Oh, double bollocks. How do I get out of here? Alright, just wait for that to go off. Anytime now. There we go. Leave! Time to leave. Alright. And it's a very stressful game, you know, there's a lot of excitement and tension to be had. But it's just a shame that some elements of it are so sloppy. Could definitely do with working on that in a big way and just having a look at that progression curve again and seeing if maybe it couldn't be tightened up a little bit. Now, the first few levels of the game are particularly dull because there's very little you can actually do, and it can be even worse if you don't get the right first level from the procedural generation system. That's a little bit silly. But it's a nice little ambitious stealth heist game with a great aesthetic and some really interesting ideas and plenty of tension. And I do love this idea of greed and risk-reward, and it's pretty well executed in that regard. I'm probably going to have to restart because, of course, I only have 29 days remaining. I mean, I've done over 100 heists in this over the course of probably about 6 hours. And I still feel like I'm nowhere near mastering the game. I can barely even get any money out of the third difficulty level. I don't even want to think about how the rest of them are going to be, but I'd love to see what interesting little security robots and concoctions and devices that I'm going to have to deal with, because each difficulty level really ramps the tension and the difficulty up quite nicely there, but also increases the rewards. So that little bit of inner greed inside me is saying, you know, just go on, you know, go for another one. It'll be fine. It's okay. You don't need that XP multiplier. You can risk it. You're good enough. You're good enough. And then the game just happily slaps you down. Definitely a frustrating experience. Possibly worth going through that frustration if you really like the theme and if the idea of a heist stealth game intrigues you. Could definitely be tightened up a great deal, though. Still quite a bit of work to do on that as far as I'm concerned. The Swindle, ladies and gentlemen, available on Axiom Esports sponsor GOG.com as well as Steam for $15 or your regional equivalent. My name's been TotalBiscuit. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.